Welcome back, everybody. Good afternoon. It is day 5 of the advent of code, and we are still getting ready to head off into the jungle. Today, we are looking at unloading our crates of supplies from our large supply ship. We have a giant cargo crane capable of moving them between the massive stacks. You see, it looks like here one of the elves ended up loading it wrong, so now all of our most necessary supplies is at the bottom, and we're going to be needing to go through quite a few steps to get it loaded correctly. Now, the elves here don't want to interrupt the crane operator during this delicate procedure, but they forgot to ask her which crate will end up where, and they really want to be ready to unload them as soon as possible so that we can embark. They do, however, have a drawing of the starting stacks of crates and the rearrangement procedure, which will be our puzzle input for the day. We can see an example of the type of puzzle input we'll be getting here. Now you can see this might be an interesting one to parse today. We have ourselves 3 stacks shown here with our crates marked with different letters on them. We have Z, N here, M, C, D, and P. Then our instructions will have move 1 from 2 to 1, which would of course mean that we're moving 1 crate from the top of 2 to the top of 1. An interesting thing to note is that our crane can currently move only 1 crate at a time. So even if we are moving, say, move 3 crates from 1 to 3, they'll be ending up reversed in the order that they're set onto 3. So for example here, when we move 2 from 2 to 1, let's say we do this. So let's say we would move D, and then we would move C on top of that, so it's been flipped there. Something to pay attention to as we're working. Today, the elves just need to know which crate will end up on top of each stack. And so that will be what our challenge is for the day, to get our puzzle input, which will be our starting stacks and our instructions, go through all of it and see what will end up at the top. Now, if we look at our puzzle input over here, this one's probably going to be a very interesting one to parse like we looked at a minute ago. We have a lot of spaces, a lot of brackets, a lot to work with there, but I think we can get it done. And then after that, it's going to be pretty simple, just taking the numeric characters from our instruction set here, getting them turned into integers, and then we should be able to just loop through it and do the operation onto the stacks. Alright, here we are back over in our VS Code here. We've got our new day5.py file pulled up, and we have all of our input pasted into our input5.txt file. So as always, we will go ahead and start writing out a parser for the day. This one should be an interesting one. Go ahead and open up input5.txt as our file pointer. Now here's where things are going to get interesting. I think we're going to have to divide this into 2 parts based on how our input is. We're going to need to be splitting this portion right here with all of our starting stacks from the instructions. Now there's a few ways we could do this, but the one I'm looking at the most right now is I notice this line right here, the only non-white space characters there are numbers. Everything else is not. So I feel like we should be able to read one line at a time and append it to a stack list until we reach a numerical character. So we'll go ahead and create a list to hold those lines, which we will call stack stream. We'll go ahead and create a line to hold our current line that we are working with. And we will create a while loop based on this line. And so essentially what we're doing here is we're just going to be reading the line, checking if anything in it is a digit or a numerical number, and then if it is not, we're going to be appending it to our stack stream list and then reading in a new line. Over here we just have a little bit of fanciness right here to help clear up some of our extras. We're going to be replacing any 4 spaces of white in the row with the lowercase letter a, because I notice all of these are capital letters, so we shouldn't have to worry about that. And we're simply going to be stripping out the new lines here. After that, we will start going ahead and patching these up, getting them converted into just a array or a 2-dimensional list of characters that we can be using to identify which block is in the stacks. And then we can simply get rid of all of those A's that we used. We just put those in there so we could have a perfectly square stack, and I can try to flip the stack on its side to make it easier to read. We'll be flipping it. This S would be here, this R would be here, so it's flipping on its side clockwise. Alright, so here we are right here. We have a new list that's going to be containing our finished stacks, and it's going to be a 2-dimensional list. So we're just filling it with blank lists based on the length of the top row of our stack stream. Then we're going to be looping through I in the range of that top row and J in the range of the actual stack, and for each I. After that, we'll go ahead and start parsing our commands for the day. So essentially for our commands here, we'll just be using a list comprehension converted to a tuple. We'll be reading in our extra remaining lines that we have here, making sure that they are actually a full line, not just our blank space that we have on line 10. Then we will be splitting them at their spaces, making sure that they are actually one of the numbers that we get, and then we'll be creating them into integers so that now we'll have a two-dimensional tuple of the integers that we're planning to use. So now we'll go ahead and just return a tuple with our commands and stacks. And we can come down here and start defining our process, which will be taking in these stacks and commands. Now we'll simply use a for loop to loop through the commands that we are given. So for command in commands. And now at the start of each step, we want to have the amount that we will be moving, which can be our command 0, which will be the amount to move. We want to have the stack that we are moving from, which will be the second command we are given. So we'll go ahead and use stacks and index it with the second argument in command. -1, of course, since it's going to be one higher than our index. And then we're going to want to find the length of the section that we are moving. So we'll be using the length of move from minus the amount that we want to move. Lastly, we'll be creating a temporary value, which will be holding the values of the amount of the tower that we want to move. So we'll be setting stack to a list slice from move from, which will be starting at the section length and going all the way through. Now it's important at this point, we want to make sure that it is reversed. Since our crane's going to be moving one at a time, the boxes will end up flipped. And then after that, we can go ahead and move down here and start changing our stacks. We'll go ahead and start by adding temp to the stack that we're adding to. So for that, we will get it with our stacks and then the third value from our command, and use the .extend method with the temporary variable. Then to take off the other one, we will be getting the stack that we want to take off of with, once again, command second value -1 for the index, and we'll be setting it equal to a list slice from move from, which we will start at the beginning and go all the way through section length. At this point, we can go ahead and start looking at returning a value, which we will want to be a string that is containing the letters from the top of the stacks. So we'll be using a .join method to create it. We're going to be using a list comprehension where we pop off the top of each stack. So stack.pop for stack in stacks. Let's make sure we drop out of our for loop over here so we don't exit too quickly. And we will go ahead and go down here, and that should be good. So we'll go ahead and go down here and start printing it out. We will print our process on the values taken from our parser. And if we go ahead and try this out, Python day5.py, let's see what we get. Okay, we have ZRLJGSCTR. So let's go ahead and copy this, and we will head over to the Advent of Code. Alright, we are back here, pasting in our value to see what we get when we submit, and we have the right answer. We are free to continue to part 2. Okay, as we watch the crane operator expertly rearranging the crates, we notice the process isn't following our prediction. We see some mud was covering the writing on the side of the crane, and we quickly wipe it away, realizing it is not a Crate Mover 9000, it is a Crate Mover 9001, which is notable for many new and exciting features such as air conditioning, leather seats, an extra cup holder, and the ability to pick up and move multiple crates at once. So we went through all that trouble making sure to reverse the crates, and it turns out that we don't even have to reverse the crates. Alright, so let's look at this now. As far as I can tell, the only thing different is going to be we can rearrange all of our crates at once, which fortunately for us should be fairly easy to implement, at least since we had to do the extra step of reversing it in our last challenge. So let's head back over there and see what we can do. Alrighty, headed back over here. I think this should be fairly simple to implement. You see, we're just reversing it right here. So for today, I don't think we even need to have a secondary process. Instead, we could just have a condition to check if it needs to reverse or not. So what we'll do right here is have a reverse, which defaults to true. And then we will do this based on that. So we'll go ahead and get rid of this, have an if condition right here, and say if reverse, then temporary is equal to the reversed of temporary. Now we should be able to print out the process on a second time with parser and the value false. And here we go. Yep, here we are. PRTTGRFPB. Alright, here we go. Pasting it in and submit. And we have the right answer. That was probably got to be the quickest second challenge I think I have done so far in this very short time that we've been on here. But there we go. There we have it. Alrighty, folks, that's about gonna do it for me today. I'm sorry I got this one out a little bit late. I got a late start today. Thank y'all, though, so much for watching. That was really enjoyable. If y'all enjoyed, please consider leaving a like or a comment. That would be absolutely amazing. As always, I'll be back tomorrow with the next day 6, so thank y'all so much for watching, and until then, I will see y'all later. Goodbye.